Welcome to Trading Nation. I'm Brian Sullivan. Let's talk GE. Worst stock in the Dow by far last year, down over 40%, but up a couple of percent in 2018. Should you trust that there's some kind of a real recovery rally in GE or just a short-term pop here? Let's find out. Stacey Gilbert and Matt Maley are your Trading Nation team. Stacey Gilbert, what do you guys think there at Susquehanna? I mean, the stock's shown a little life, couple of percent. Don't want to make too much of it, but do you think it's sustainable?
Yeah, this is a tough one because I own GE. I've owned GE for a very long time. It's, the value trap of the century right now.
My apologies.
It feels like, oh, it's painful. So what I would say about it. So what do we see from a sentiment perspective? There is some upside call buying in the options, but this is not what I would call pound the table. They think the story is turning around and this ship has straightened itself out faster than expected. This really, to me, the activity looks like investors who don't want to miss a pop if it were to happen. So I do think that a lot of this recent performance really is kind of that dead cat bounce that, hey, let's see what happens here. Let's maybe potentially get involved here. The name itself, just again, because I do own it, we don't cover it fundamentally, but it's a name that I obviously know pretty well. It's just going to take time. And so for the fact that we're talking about it already at the beginning of 2018, and it was just 2 months ago that CEO John Flannery came out and basically threw the baby out with the bathwater and said, this is about as bad as it's going to get, and it's going to take time. I think it's early. I do think GE probably has limited downside here. There's activity that you could do, certainly in a position for that. But, rallying significantly this year, I don't see it sentiment-wise or even fundamentally.
Matt Maley, do you ski?
Do I ski? I do.
Okay, so you'll get this. A couple years ago, I took a bad spill skiing on a pretty steep slope, and, I got banged up pretty good. And I was falling and falling and falling. And finally, toward the end, I basically stopped falling. I wasn't okay, but at least I said to myself, I'm done falling. And I wonder, is GE, it looks like it has stopped falling, but is it okay? I mean, it may form a base, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going higher, does it?
Right. You make a very good point. I mean, the stock, on a fundamental basis, it has some, on a technical basis, it has some potential here. I mean, the stock has been trading sideways, trying to form a base for the last 6 weeks or so in the 17.5 to 18.5 range. So that's positive. And if it can bounce here a little bit and bounce and move above its 50-day moving average, which provided very tough resistance throughout almost all of 2017, that would be positive. My one concern, though, is that this bounce over the last couple of days, I think, is more to do with the fact that the tax loss selling that was going on, because obviously, as you mentioned, it was the dog of the Dow in 2017. So it was a big candidate for tax loss selling. And that now that those sellers have moved out of the way, the stock's popped a little bit. Not because people are jumping into it, they think the thing's bottomed, only because the sellers have kind of disappeared. So, Stacey, I think Stacey's point is very important. Is that we saw what John Flannery said back when they reported their earnings. It's good that they threw the baby out with the bathwater, but he definitely said this is going to be a long-term thing. It's not going to be something that's going to turn around quickly. So, unless we really see a significant bounce and some real money going into it over an extended period, not just over this little short period of time after the tax loss selling ended, I'd feel more comfortable. But right now, I think sooner or later, I think it's later rather than sooner.
Yeah, I like that idea. It's an important concept. Just a lack of sellers does not necessarily mean that there's a lot of buyers. Although, to Stacey's point, there's a few upside calls floating around out there. Stacey, we'll get you back on the GE story because it is one that you obviously take personally, too. Matt Maley and Stacey Gilbert, thank you very much for watching Trading Nation. Everybody, I'm Brian Sullivan. Take care.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.